Okay, we've done some basic configuration. Now in this video, let's look at two simple things. And that's configuring the host name, domain name. Because in our next video, we're going to look at configuring passwords. And when we get to doing secure shell, SSH, which requires encryption, we need to make sure that we have not a username, but a domain name and a host name. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. So remember to get into the configuration. Just click on the device, opens up a new window, and here it is. So switch is the generic host name it gets. Routers, it just gets the name router. So remember to get into privilege exec, en, to get in config mode, config t. Now to assign a host name, command, host name, and then what we want to name it. Let's call this one Blue. You can see it immediately changes the host name to Blue. Now, domain name, you would think, hey, I just type in domain name. But in actuality, let's take a look. We put in a question mark, hit enter. Let's see, host name. That was clear, but I don't see anything domain name. Well, that's because it's under the IP command. So we type in IP question mark. There we see it. Domain name. So IP domain name, and then we'll call this CP for cyberpatriot.org. How's that sound? So now this device's fully qualified domain name, the FQDN, would be blue.cp.org. So that's all there is to it. I'll show you one other thing, and that's saving the configuration. Right now this configuration is running strictly in memory. If I was to reboot this, it would all just disappear. So back in privilege exec, to save it, I can just enter WR for write. So let's question mark it. Write erase deletes all the memory. Write memory writes it to memory. Write terminal writes it to essentially the screen. So you could use a write startup config to terminal to essentially reload the configuration. But in this case, we're trying to save our running config into what's called the startup config. That's the stuff that's on memory. In non-volatile, that's what the NV stands for, is non-volatile memory. That means it will survive a reboot. If I don't type anything in, if I just write WR, it's kind of a shortcut to say write whatever's in running config over to startup config. But for clarity's sake, I'll just do write mem and hit enter. And now it says building configuration. Okay. Now if I reboot this box, blue, IP address, all that, that stays the same. We don't have to redo it every time. Okay. So I will cut this one short with that and see you on the next one.